Hello and happy Thursday. My name is Jessi Sletten from Empowering Postpartum, and welcome to the Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. And Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire Sticks, Roku, and Roku Sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. We are back this week for a very special episode of Empowering Postpartum with me, Jessi Sletten, your postpartum empowerment coach, helping you feel confident, prepared, and holistically supported for your unique journey into parenthood. And I am so honored to introduce my guest this week, Dr. Toya, board-certified OBGYN and physician mom coach. And we're going to be chatting about one of my favorite topics, which is postpartum care beyond the fourth trimester, and really that importance of that continued care, why it's so important, and what we could do for ourselves to advocate for that care. And I am just so excited to have you here. Thank you so much, Dr. Toya. I know it has been an adventure getting here today, so thank you so much.
Yes, I am so happy to be here, and we're here, so it's all good.
That's all that matters, right?
Yes.
Well, I would really love for you to just kind of kick us off with just introducing yourself a little bit more. Tell us your story, how you got into the work that you do, and really just kick us off about this really important and passionate topic for the both of us.
Yes, thank you. So I am Dr. Toya Luces-Sampson. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, and I went to Howard University for undergrad and medical school, trained in OBGYN in Philly, and then came out to Northern California, which is where I live currently. And I, was practicing normally, and then I had my second baby. And that postpartum experience was rough, to say the least. So that's really what got me into postpartum coaching and coaching for women who have little kids. It's because though I had been practicing obstetrics for over a decade, I had been informally coaching my colleagues in this time because of that expertise. I never really understood the depths of the challenges during this time until it happened to me. It so often happens like that, right?
Yes.
So, I had my baby and I thought that everything would be great. I would get back into doing my work. I was doing entrepreneurship. I was working as an OB non-traditionally, doing travel doctoring. So I had full control of my schedule. I had done this before. Everything was going to be great, right? Not so much. So I got back into things a little too quickly. And at the same time, I was in a lot of pain physically because my daughter was huge. I had issues during the pregnancy that persisted. Some new ones came up. And I felt like the people around me, though they loved me very much, just were not taking care of me the way that I felt like I should be taken care of. And I grew very resentful. And I stewed in my resentment without saying anything. So they didn't know what they were doing. I knew what I thought they were doing and, just decided, well, they should know. They should see what I'm going through and they should be able to act, right? Until it all came crashing down. I had speaking engagements and all of these things planned that I just had to cancel. I said, I can no longer do this and put on this kind of forward-facing, everything is okay act.
Yeah.
I told my husband, I need a break. I'm going to go on a trip and you all stay here and I will be back whenever, I just need a break. So he was like, that's no, what's going on? Cause he had no idea. Right. So, my sister actually had to come all the way from Trinidad to help my mom, who was here at the time, to stay with the kids. And my husband and I actually went on that trip to really just kind of reconnect and figure out what was going on, really talk about what was going on. And I had to realize that my priority needs to be me and making sure that I am okay, because if I'm not okay, nobody else will be, right? I was still breastfeeding, I'm caring for my toddler and my family. I need to be well physically and mentally for them to be okay. And everything else, all of my commitments were really secondary to that. So I had to take a step back, really focus on that healing get the therapy, both physical and psychological, that I needed, and, really talk about what I needed to be okay during this time. And as I came out of that, I was like, I don't want to have anybody else go through this.
Mm.
And as an OB, like, I'm always looking for ways to care for people, to make people's lives better, especially in this season.
Mm.
So I started off with just education online, and I was like, there's something more. So I started doing webinars, and that was great because I actually got like interaction, which I love. And then I was like, there's more. So I created this medical program because that's what I do. I practice medicine. So, it was funny because I would tell people this is what I want to do, focusing on postpartum care for women, particularly beyond the fourth trimester, because that transition back to regular life is where it's most difficult, and it's where it hit me.
Yeah.
And everybody I told about it was like, this sounds like coaching. Like, is it a medical program? And I was like, no, yes, it's medical. I'm a doctor. That's what doctors do.
Right.
And, every people just kept saying it. And I was like, okay, let me take a step back and really evaluate this. What am I going to do that is medical? And when I think about the way that I practiced when I was in traditional office practice, a lot of what I did was counseling and talking and, coaching. So it felt like what I usually did to me, but there was really no practicing of medicine that was going to happen.
Right.
So I just pivoted and said, okay, I'm going to have this coaching program. I've been kind of doing it already. Let's make it official and really focus on professional working moms, in particular physician moms, because we have a very unique set of challenges. Is we don't all only have to take care of ourselves and our families. We also have the responsibilities of other people's lives, right? So there's just this extra layer of pressure during this time that can be so pressured. So my entire mission is just to let people know it is okay to seek help. It is okay to receive help. We are not supposed to be in this period alone. There's a reason to say it, and that means for you as well, right? You have to be okay, healthy, healed, loved, cared for, and rested for everything else to be okay. And I just want every mom to know that you deserve that. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's my mission.
I love that so much. Our paths to this point have been very different, but very similar in nature as far as, having this passion ignited from our own experiences and really seeing for the first time with open eyes how neglected, I want to say, we are as birth givers. It's kind of like this thing where we become an extension to our baby, and we're not really prioritized in this time. And so because that is what we see, we kind of take on that idea within ourselves too. And so I think that there's this extra layer of society expects this, therefore I'm going to expect it for myself. And anything outside of that is just seen as selfish, or I'm not enjoying motherhood, I'm no good at it. We tell ourselves all these negative things, right? And we have these stories that start spinning in our mind that keep us from getting help, right? And I think that with especially the population you work with physician moms, it must be that even more intense, I would assume, because of that expertise that you carry, especially as an OB. I'm sure that it must have been so off balancing for you to experience. I'm an OB, like this is what I do. I help women, birth givers, who are coming into their parenthood, who are, connecting with their bodies in this way. So I want to just say that is so admirable for you to be able to realize, like, wow, I need to prioritize myself, and I don't know everything, and I do need help. And I think that that's such a strength to be able to be that person for others now, who I'm sure have those similar feelings. Like, I should know what I'm doing, right? I'm a doctor. I know these things. Oh my goodness, I can only imagine.
And that conversation is one of the dangerous words for a new parent, because it just puts so much pressure on you. from yourself, your own thoughts about how you should be as a parent,
Right.
and then society, right? They're telling you all of these things from family, and then we have social media. Like, I should be able to handle this. Like, she's doing it, so why can't I? It is a very difficult place to be.
Yes, yes, I can only imagine. Yeah, it's one of those things. I had kind of the opposite where it was my first postpartum experience that was very
Mm,
difficult for myself. And I'm not a physician in any way, but I, studied human development and family studies and
yeah.
psychology as a teacher, and I had this experience of working with children and parents, and I just assumed like, oh, this will just be like the next step for me, right? Like it'll just be this smooth transition. I know what I'm doing. I know that I will breastfeed and it's this natural experience. And
Oh my
guess
gosh.
what? It was
Don't get me
not.
started. Don't get me started on that one.
Yeah, I know.
Because,
Like,
yeah,
oh,
that was part of the issue with the second one. Because with
yeah,
my first, I breastfed for 22 months. It was great. Like, I was hoping he would stop, and he just didn't. So I just kept going. And I assumed that it would be the same with the second, but it
yes,
was a challenge, not in a supply type of way. So when I look at the challenges that people have in this phase, actually, it was actually pretty good still, but it was still challenging, and it was frustrating, and it was tiring and anxiety producing, and all of these things you don't usually associate with breastfeeding.
right,
And in my opinion, I feel like the messaging that it is this great thing that will come naturally. Your body was meant to do this. That thing that seems so empowering can
right,
really be damaging if you think that this is a universal experience. And if it's
right,
not your experience, then something is wrong with you, right?
right,
I luckily didn't have that issue, that why I knew this could happen sometimes because of my work as an OB. But it was still like, come on, like, what is going on? I did this before. This
right,
shouldn't be this hard. And eventually I had to stop because it was overwhelming me. It was taking over my life.
yeah,
And I made it to 8 months, and it was such a relief. It
yeah.
was just a relief to be able to stop. And she didn't even care.
Right, right,
She was fine.
right. She's like, as long as my belly's full, mom, I'm fine.
Right. Right. So, I'm a huge proponent of breastfeeding.
Yes.
The benefits cannot be overstated, but I
Mhm.
am also a huge proponent of letting people know that it is okay if you don't like it. It
Right.
is okay if you can't produce enough. And it's okay if you just say, I can't do this. My mental health is suffering and I need to stop.
Yes, 100% agree. As I'm a CLC as well, and so like the people when I work with, who are having this internal battle of the guilt
Yeah.
versus I know the benefits are there, and it's one of those things where I often say, but your bond with your baby and your connection with your baby, if that is being diminished because of your
Yeah.
struggle and because of the anxiety or the rage or whatever emotions you are feeling because of this part of parenthood,
Yeah.
it's not the whole, right? And it's the piece that's more important is your connection to your little one and how you are doing, like
Yeah.
mentally, physically, emotionally. That is where that being the parent centers from, right? Being able to produce milk does not mean that you're a parent, like that's
Right.
not what defines
That's not it. Yes. And I also think that's an important message for people that cannot. If
Yes,
somebody had a mastectomy and they can't, or they
absolutely.
had some other issue and they can't do it, it's okay for you to feed your child in a different way,
Yeah,
and they will be fine. Like, I'm a big fed is best person, not because it's breastfeeding is whatever and it's not important,
right.
but it needs to be okay for everyone who has the honor of giving birth, or being a parent, I should say, because not all parents give birth.
Right.
So, I just feel like it's important to spread that message.
Yes, I agree 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'd love for you to give us a little bit of perspective from like a clinical standpoint, just because you are of both worlds. You're a
Yeah.
mom, you're also, a medical professional and a coach. If you could walk us through like that process of you really understanding you were at this turning point of, okay, I'm okay with the fact that I can't do this all on my own, and then how
Mm.
that looked for you to get the help you needed and reaching out. I know that trip was a turning point, it sounds like, for
Yeah.
you, but if you could just, if you don't mind, whatever you're
Yeah.
comfortable sharing with, I think that would be really eye-opening and helpful for others to hear your story and your journey.
Yeah. So I always tell people, don't be like me. Learn from my experience. Right? You don't
Right.
have to do it. You don't have to do it quite like this. But coming to the point where I had to just say I need to step away from everything. It was just like a buildup, of really the anger and the resentment, and it's feelings that I was surprised about. People always focus on, when you say I had postpartum, it's like I had postpartum depression is what you mean, but there's
Right.
so many other things that you could be feeling, though all of those feelings are valid and they're no less impactful on your life, right? So if you're feeling any type of way, speaking up is the first step to it, because that's what I did. I just kept it all inside. And I feel like it's a very easy thing to do, for many reasons, right? Like I said, I felt like everybody should know. So I shouldn't have had to say anything, right? Y'all could see I just had this whole baby. She's huge. She drinks a lot, breastfeeding
Yep.
hurts. Like, are y'all not seeing me? Like, what is going
Right.
on? So
Right.
it's very easy to think that way. Like,
Yes.
hello, I'm struggling
Right.
here. Why don't you see? And
Mhm.
while they maybe they should, maybe,
Mhm.
but worrying about what other people should do, to me, it doesn't make any sense,
Right.
because it puts an unfair burden on them.
Mhm.
And really, it's important to use our voices to speak
Mhm.
up and say, I'm not okay. This is what I need to be okay.
Mhm.
And usually, speaking up is going to affect some change. Everybody's household dynamics are different, right? So you may get negativity, you may get, a family member that passes judgment, but
Mhm.
having and finding the strength to continue to say, I am not okay, and this is what I need, is really important. And then, if you are getting pushback, going outside the immediate unit, do you
Yes.
have a friend? Do you have an extended family member? Can you reach out to your doctor? Do you have a doula that you can contact? Do you have a therapist? Like, it is the persistence to prioritize yourself and to get the help that you need that is really important, because I understand that people have barriers, right? It's not just I speak up and everybody's like, oh, I didn't know,
Right.
let me help you. Not everybody has that, right?
Right.
So I wanted to make sure I touched on, if you have that barrier, and also if you think you're going to have that barrier and maybe the reality is not. I think we also tell ourselves a lot of things that, well, they're not going to understand. They're going to
Right.
think I'm a bad mom. They're going to take my baby away.
Mhm.
They're going to judge me because my mother-in-law did this with 10 children and she was fine and had no help. Right? There are
Right.
all these barriers that we put up for ourselves before we
Mhm.
even give people a chance to disappoint us, right?
Yes.
Because it's better if I just don't say anything so I don't have to feel the disappointment if they disappoint me.
Mhm.
So I think it's just really important to just use our voices, get the
Yes.
support that you need, and really talking about these things during pregnancy. Like, what am I going to do if I don't feel well? Who
Mhm.
is a trusted person I can reach out to, say, I'm not okay. This is the help that we talked about when I was pregnant. So
Right.
planning for postpartum, I think, is just the most important thing, and is one
Yes.
that nobody thinks about. Everybody's thinking about the baby.
Right.
And we really need to think about, how am I going to make sure that I'm okay during this time?
Yes, preach. That's like my whole thing. I really do believe that, postpartum care is preventative care, and we have
Yeah.
to approach it from a
Oh, I
preventative
love
standpoint.
that.
It's so true, because
Yeah.
it's like, if
Yeah.
we don't we plan for our birth like we do weddings, right? And we're like,
Right.
oh, this is the big event, the birth,
Yes.
and we like have that all planned out to a T.
Yeah.
And then we're like, we get the baby or we get the marriage and the relationship afterward, and we're like, what do we do?
Yeah. What do
What
we
do we
do
do
now?
next? And so it's like all this effort and money and preparation went
Yeah.
into big events, but that's just the beginning. And postpartum is
Yeah.
forever. It truly is. Birth is
It
temporary,
really
postpartum
is.
is forever. And so the fact that we aren't planning is a huge detriment to not only
Yeah.
our babies, but also ourselves and our family
Yeah.
as a whole. And I couldn't agree more that having those plans
Mhm.
before the emergency is where the tools and strength and ability to pull ourselves out of the
Yeah.
trenches really is the
Yeah.
key. Because if we curate that village ahead of
Yeah.
time and we understand where our gaps are, we understand who our ride or dies are, right, within our
Yeah.
like close knit
Yeah.
family, friends, and then what they can't offer us, which is okay to recognize. We find that person somewhere else, whether that's a professional like you and I, a coach who can
Yeah.
be there and not pass judgment and make sure
Yes.
you feel seen and heard and in control in certain aspects where you can be. That's where it's so important to be able to fill in those gaps and not feel so defeated about, well, I
Yeah.
have in my life who can fill that role. That's where we really need to empower ourselves and advocate for ourselves to say, well, I'm going to seek that out then, right? So
Yeah.
that I don't have to scramble when I'm
Right.
deep in the throes of depression or I'm in pain physically because my
Yeah.
pelvic floor is malfunctioning or whatever that looks like,
Whatever it
build
is. Yeah.
team ahead of time. It's so powerful.
It's
It
so
really
it's
is.
so important. And I like what you said about curating your village, because I say that all
Yes.
the time as well. In this age of people not living near their family, my family
Yes.
is in Trinidad.
Yes.
So you really have to be intentional about creating this village and curating it. And I like the word curating because there are people that you don't want in there just
Right.
because they are close to you. Proximity
Mhm.
is not the qualifier to get into
No.
your village, right? They have to actually be helpful. They have to
Right.
be non-judgmental. They have to have a little bit of understanding. So sometimes your friend who is child free and hates kids, not that there's anything wrong with that, that's great for you, but maybe
Right.
not the person that you want in your village, right?
Right.
They can
Right.
be there for something else, right?
Yeah.
So, being really intentional and
Mhm.
discerning about who you have, and it could be virtual,
Yes.
we this is a different world post
Right.
COVID,
Right.
and there are different ways, and we can be creative and just be intentional about making sure that we have the support that we need
Yes.
beforehand. And I just want to say one other thing, because we're talking about all of the things that postpartum people can do, right?
Mhm.
I always tell people, if you know anyone who has the ability to bear a child, you need to engage in these topics and in my content,
Yes.
because you need to know how to take care of these people. We
Yes.
can't all do it alone
Right.
as the people who are in the situation, right? We need everyone around us to be able to understand, because it's I get it, right? You don't really know what's going on. It may be
Right.
hard to admit, even if you've had a child before.
Mhm.
So it's important for everyone to hear these messages so that
Yes.
we can all come together and give the support that people in this season really need.
Oh, 100% agree. Yeah, the responsibility shouldn't solely ride on the birth giver, right? Because
Right,
we truly are a family unit. We're a
right.
community, whatever that might look like for who's surrounding this birthing person. But they need somebody to feel safe with, right? And so if you are not proactively learning about what do I need to know if things aren't right, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody should be educated on postpartum,
Mhm.
mental health
Yeah.
and even perinatal mental health as a whole, right? Like what are the signs? When do I need to really check in with this person because
Yeah.
something just isn't right, and it might look different for everybody.
Yes.
And I always say like postpartum depression doesn't have just one face, right? Or
Yeah.
anxiety. You can be like, for me, my example, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety were very present. And as a perfectionist and as a high achieving person,
Right.
I never showed it. I was always
Yeah.
just on it. And then
Yeah.
internally, I was just suffering. And
Yeah.
it lasted a very long time. And I never shared because I
Yeah.
was afraid of being seen as less than, like, well, you've always had it together.
Right.
You're always in control. What's going on? And those same
Yeah.
thoughts, worries of, are they going to take my kid away from me because I
Yeah.
just am so incompetent, and those thoughts just race. And so being that safe person who can truly see you is so important. And really, please, as the support system, don't make them do it alone. And yes, they need
Right.
to raise the voice. Yes, we need to advocate for ourselves, but sometimes we just don't feel safe to do that.
Right, right. And I love what you said about the personality types
Yes.
because, it's the same, right? Professional, achieving women tend to be type A. You are so used to being in control, in charge, and a boss. I was going to say
Yes.
a different word, but we're on TV. you know,
I get you. I
like
know what
in,
you
in in
mean.
your life, right? Like you're so used to that. And then this feeling of inadequacy and uncertainty in motherhood is just like, what is going on?
Yeah,
I'm not used to feeling like this. So it's
right.
just this added layer that just makes everything feel worse. And then, as you said, I usually have it all together. So it's not just a comparison to other parents, but it's a
Yes.
comparison to your former self,
Hmm.
right? But just recognizing that this is a new you, and it's
Hmm.
not a worse you, it's just different in this
Right.
new context. And it also, you can get back, but it may be to a different version, maybe even better. But
Yes.
comparing yourself to even yourself can then sometimes just be as damaging.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's that shifting an identity, it's so prevalent. Like we're unbecoming who we were and becoming who we're going to be now. And yes, there are some things that we could see as a loss and recognize those, mourn those, take a moment to
Yeah,
have that feeling and sit with that for as long as you need, but don't stay there.
yeah,
Then it's time for us to say, okay, that's who I was. I'm honoring that
yeah,
piece of me. And that's the piece I do need to let go. And that's okay, because what I'm reaching for now and who I'm developing into now, that is the better version of who I am and who I can be as a
yeah,
parent, as an individual, and really allowing yourself to feel all the feelings, but then don't
yeah,
stay there. Don't stay
yeah,
there. If it's in a place where it's
right.
depressed or anxious,
Yeah,
it's when we really need those connections to pull us out.
yeah. And if you can't figure out how to not stay there, that's when you reach out for help.
Exactly, exactly. Because we don't know sometimes. It's just like
Yeah.
we need that lifeline, because we've never done this before. Even if we have had other kids, like your experience was your
Yes.
second child. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't prepare you for anything, right? Because each unique
The-
pregnancy is unique and each postpartum is unique. And you're
yeah.
going to be a different person going through your second postpartum
Mhm.
than you were your first. And so it's
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see that we may be wiser, we may have these tools that we have developed from our experiences, but we don't know
Well,
everything and we cannot do it
exactly.
alone.
Yeah, and you have so many new dynamics, even though
Yes,
you've done it before. You have
right.
this toddler, you have two other children,
Mhm,
your body is older.
mhm.
There's so many different things that are new because you've done it before
Yeah.
that we really need to think about them as each separate individual circumstances and prepare
Yes.
for them separately.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's that planning piece too, really taking that
Mhm.
time to connect with yourself before the birth and just
Yeah,
honoring who you are. What pieces maybe do you want to bring with you? What pieces are you
yeah,
okay with saying, you know what, I already know that that's going to shift. I'm going to make peace with that now, and then
yeah,
as you go, you just continuously recognize those feelings and honor them and then let them go, right, as you move
yeah.
forward so that you can step into this new version of yourself with love and compassion and kindness, and
Mhm.
appreciation, and this can be for your identity, it can be for your relationships, it can be with how you view your own body. It's
Oh my
such a
gosh.
complicated array of things that we deal with.
Let me just talk about that for a second. So I thought of several things as you were talking,
Yes.
but the body piece, this is another soap. I have a lot of soapboxes. So more from my story. I
Yes.
was somewhere on a beach. So I was in a bathing suit and took a selfie
Mhm.
and I was like, I looked at it and I was like, oh, look at this belly. Because I
Yeah.
was closer postpartum than I am now. My daughter's one. I don't know if I mentioned that, but she's one. So I'm only just no longer postpartum.
Yes.
And my friend who was with me said, "Oh, but it's fine. You gave birth, you grew this life inside of you. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
And I got really irritated
Yeah.
because there's this general feeling that because you did this amazing thing, you just have to accept. however you feel in this new body. And it
Mhm.
should be a good thing. You should feel empowered.
Mhm.
Those aren't stretch marks, they're tiger stripes or whatever the saying is.
Mhm.
And it's great if you feel that way, but it's
Yes.
also okay if you don't.
Mhm.
And if once it's not an obsession,
Mhm.
once it's not from external forces, then I think we should allow people to feel how they feel
Yes.
and not pass judgment, because it was like a little bit judgy, right? Like I shouldn't
Mhm.
be upset,
Right.
or I wasn't even upset, but I shouldn't say those things or have those feelings because
Right.
I grew this life, where it could be that I have these feelings and I grew this life,
Mhm.
and my feelings are valid, and
Yes.
it is a source for me to have motivation to get back to how I was, because I loved my body
Right.
before I had kids, and that's okay. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to conform to any societal norms. I'm not trying to please a man. I'm not doing
Yes.
anything. But it's for me,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's okay. And I
Yes.
say, if I hear one more person tell a pregnant person, this is your new body. It's fine.
Right.
It did a great thing. Don't
Right.
don't complain. Like that's not helpful.
No,
That
that's
I
toxic
think it's unfair.
positivity, right, at its finest.
Exactly.
Like, just
Right.
no, I can feel both things, right? I know that
Right.
I'm a you know what? I have to
Yeah.
remember to be again, but I am a warrior, right? Yes, I did grow
Right.
this body. I'm more than just a vessel, okay? Like, I'm a human
Right.
being who has feelings and
Yeah.
has valid feelings about who I am, my own body, all those
Yeah.
things, and they can both exist at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like not that we're shaming, or, it doesn't have to be all of that. It could
Right.
really just be, I had a banging body before and I want to
Mhm.
get back there,
Right.
because it's a sign of self-love, right? I love myself. I loved how I look, and I
Right.
would like to get back there, and that's okay.
Right, right. Finding that strength and
Yeah.
focusing on how to nourish your body and embrace how your journey, but also how do I want
Yeah.
to shape how I move forward, and I can be in a powerful place to be able to
Yeah.
feel in control of that. Am I gonna get back to the pre-pregnancy body? No, that's impossible. Our body has
Right.
changed on a cellular
Right.
level from
Right.
pregnancy,
Right.
but I can get to a place where I feel good in my skin and I
Yeah.
am proud of what my body has done while still working on, just getting healthy and improving how I feel
Yeah.
about myself. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love to focus on getting healthy, because
Yes.
I feel like it can be an extreme, and that's where I think a lot of the pushback comes from, because we don't want to shame people, we don't want to encourage harmful habits.
Right.
So doing this in a healthy way is also possible, also while breastfeeding.
Mhm.
Like you can get healthy and maintain your supply. So making all of those things okay, I think opens up a lot of opportunity for people to feel better and not feel guilty. Like the guilt in this period is enough. We have
Right.
enough to feel guilty about. We don't need extra.
Right.
Like I'm prioritizing how I look over feeding my child. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right. It doesn't. It doesn't. And I feel like that's the case for so many things. Like you said,
Yeah.
in pregnancy and postpartum. I had a dear friend who, was very honest with me because I was a safe place for her to share her feelings. And she was
Mhm.
like, I hate being pregnant. This is torture. Like this, I
Yeah.
literally hate it. I am sick all the time. I am in
Yeah.
pain. And she was a very fit,
Yeah.
person, a personal trainer. She did all these things. And so it was a very disconnected feeling to her body and what was
Mm.
happening. But so many people were like, "Oh, you need to enjoy this time. You're
Yeah.
glowing, like you're growing a human." And she was like, "But I don't feel that way. Like I'm
Right.
not unhappy that I'm pregnant. I
Right.
want this baby and this baby is already
Mhm.
loved, but I don't love what's happening to me, and that's okay."
Yeah. Yeah, I think we probably just need to stop commenting on people's bodies in the first place. Like
Exactly. Just don't do it.
baseline.
Just
Just
don't do
stay
it.
away. But yes, I like the message that not every part of this journey, and that includes pregnancy and postpartum, is joyful.
Right.
And it's okay to feel how you are feeling. Because
Yes.
anytime we have this standard that we are comparing ourselves to, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, exactly. Just back to when we were talking about each journey is unique, and it's
Yeah.
like it's not going to be the same experience for everybody. You're not going to always, be able to breastfeed right away if that was your goal.
Right.
And, as long as you have that curated village where you've already
Yeah.
identified feeding support, if that still is a goal that's important to you and you want to still continue down that path, have the resources there and available for you so that you're not, sitting there in pain or
Right.
struggling, whatever that might be. But really just, understanding that there is no one right way to
Mhm.
navigate birth and postpartum, and
Yeah.
it's going to be different for you, and that's okay. Your journey is your own. You are powerful. You can do this, but you can't do it alone. So make sure
Right.
you do have that village surrounding you before you're
Yeah.
drowning.
Right. Before. And I
Mhm.
just want to talk about, that transition back to work.
Yes.
I always use work because I serve professional
Right.
moms, but it's that time, and it usually ends up being at the end of the fourth trimester.
Mm.
A lot of my physician moms are blessed enough to have 12 weeks off,
Mhm.
and the support that we're talking about doesn't end because you're 3 months out, because you've gone back to work.
Right.
Like, you still need support. Postpartum, by definition, lasts for 1 year,
Mhm.
right? So that's just medically.
Right.
A lot of the issues you may have in the early part of postpartum may persist, and you may
Mhm.
actually have some new issues, right?
Mhm.
So, and if you think about it, the support tends to be less because everybody was around before helping with the newborn. Then they
Right.
have to go back to their regular lives. They assume, oh, she's fine, she's
Right.
okay. But there are
Right.
so many new challenges, right?
Yes.
And it usually surrounds getting childcare. How are you going to
Mhm.
manage your milk supply if you're pumping when you go back to work? Like,
Yeah.
all of these things. And then if you had any issues with your mood before
Mm.
and you were waiting to feel better, you're realizing, hey, I still don't feel better. What
Yeah.
am I going to do? Right? So there's so many new challenges that I feel like we need to remember. We still need support beyond the fourth trimester.
Yes, I love that so much because that continuity of care is not there just
Yeah.
structurally, right? We don't have that
Right.
in the society that we're in, and so knowing that you're going to still need that support in different ways, it might change, like you're saying, whether you're going back to work or whether you need to learn how to use your pump now and how to manage your supply if you're, chest feeding. All these things, are just a new way of needing support or a continued way
Yeah.
of needing support. And you still
Mhm.
don't need to do it alone, just because your
Right.
baby's a little older and you're going back to work and everything's normal and you just have your baby
Right.
on your hip now. That's not true. That's not the
Right.
case.
Right. I would argue you need more support because the
Yes.
baby is older, walking around. You are not there if you've gone back to work. Like,
Right.
how are you really? Tell me, how are you going to do it alone? You can't. And if you don't have that village, look for it. If you don't have anyone, you really just can't find anyone, then pay for it.
Right.
Like, there's this, I was actually told by someone, I won't say who, when I was going to get childcare. It's like, oh, you're gonna have somebody else raising your child? And I was like, well,
Oh,
no, I will be doing that. I'm just carrying childcare. That's all I'm doing,
right.
right? So it may not be easy. There may be lots of judgments about it, but I'm a big proponent of hiring what you need. And I
Yes.
will say sometimes having paid help is better than free help, depending
Yes.
on the quality of the free help, right?
Completely agree.
So, I don't feel like once it is financially feasible,
Yeah.
then I think that is a very reasonable and sometimes needed option.
Yes, and know your resources. That's one of
Yeah.
the services I offer my clients is I sit down with them and I say, well, let's look through your local community resources because so
Mhm.
many people don't realize what's available
Yeah.
out there. And one example comes to mind with a client. She was a single parent, and so her curated village was very
Yeah.
lacking, right? And so we
Yeah.
really worked on that piece together. And one of the things that I found near her was basically like a scholarship program for a postpartum.
Mm,
And I was like, "Girl,
nice. Yeah.
we gotta get you
Right.
applied," and she got the scholarship, and so then she was
Right.
able to
Right.
have that free service, come in and
Yeah.
be there with her, because I was virtual, obviously, and I was still a huge
Yeah.
part of the team. But having somebody on the ground in home, helping you make meals, helping
Yeah.
you do things, I mean, you don't know what's available until you research that and look
Yes.
and see and apply, go for it. Don't think that, oh, I'll
Yeah.
never do it, because that's how she felt at first. And then she did
Right.
it
Right.
and
Right.
what happened, and I'm not saying that
Yeah.
that could happen every time, but there
Right.
are things out there for sure.
There are options for
Mhm.
every person
Yes.
in every situation. And, there's some people that really have no options, right? And that's the state of this country that I feel like the conversation for a different time.
Yes.
But, when I think about the clients that I serve, the there's more to it than the actual spending of the money, right? Like it's a more complicated thing
Mhm.
because it comes in with the level of functioning that you usually have in your life and as a professional and as a doctor. It's almost like, well, I shouldn't need help,
Right.
right? So there comes, well, I can't afford this, or, I can spend it on different things.
Yes.
And money is always like a very touchy topic because
Yes.
there's so many layers, right? Not just because you're a doctor means you have money. That's
Right.
one. And there's a matter of priorities, right? So you'll have people saying, well, I can't afford a postpartum doula or a night nurse or a regular nanny, but I can afford a $250 stroller, right? So
Right.
it's just like, where are the priorities? I'm not saying don't get a nice stroller,
Right.
but are there ways that you can rearrange things
Yes.
to be able to prioritize getting the help that you need and really just seeing it not as a luxury, but as a necessity? And it
Yes.
can actually like give you back time that you
Yeah.
could invest in other ways. You can work more if you want to, which I don't recommend. You can, if you have a side hustle, you can do that, or you can just
Right.
rest, or
Right.
you can just spend time with your baby. Like
Yes.
it's an investment that I feel like the return on it is just so high, and it doesn't
Yes.
have to be monetary. That to me, it's the number one thing you should be spending money on, right? If
Yes.
you don't have that strong core village to help you,
Right.
outsourcing everything that you possibly can will give you but back so much of yourself that it's
Yes.
just worth more than anything else.
I completely agree. It's that other piece too of really truly believing you are worthy of this
Yes.
investment. And I think that can be a
Yes.
barrier too, as we just say,
Yeah.
oh, I can't possibly spend that when my kids need XYZ, or,
Right.
we need to plan for this trip as a family or whatever. Are you going to be present? Are
Yeah.
you really going to be
Exactly.
present for that
Right.
because you aren't well? No, you're not.
Right.
And so
You're not.
you are worthy of this investment. You are worthy of the help and
Mhm.
support just as much as your children are worthy of the
Yes.
same, and really
Yeah.
embracing that and having that
Yeah.
mindset is powerful.
I I literally had a client tell me that like
Yeah.
last week that
Yeah.
she was struggling with if she was really worth all of these things. And I was just like, yes. Like I
Yeah.
don't even it was surprising to me because when you have these interactions with your clients, and it's such a special relationship because
Mhm.
you see them, you see all
Right.
of them, and
Mhm.
they can't see it. So
Right.
to be that mirror that just
Mhm.
reflecting all of their awesomeness back onto them
Yes.
is it's a good feeling, but
Mhm.
sometimes it can just be like, how do you not see this? How do you
Right.
not see how amazing you are?
Right.
And just getting under that and breaking through that can be just so transformational. It
Mhm.
just really makes me feel like this is what I was meant to be doing.
Yeah.
And I'm able to reach my clients and just through my messaging and public presence, so
Yes.
many other birthing people on such a different level than practicing obstetrics that
Yes.
it's surprising, but also like empowering that I can do this work and have this impact in this new way.
Yes, and the domino effect, right? Because of the special, group of people that you work with, I'm sure that they'll carry these things with them
Yeah.
through to their clients and to their family. And I always say, as the birthing parent or the primary parent, it's not just about your little family group, right?
Right.
Our impact has far-reaching effects into our community, into our
Yeah.
world, because we are bringing forth the next generation and showing them that
Yes.
they're worthy too. They see that you are a good model of self-care, of self-love, of
Mhm.
investing in yourself, in your family. That's going to leave a very big and influential memory for them to say,
Yes.
I am also worth that. I want that
Yeah.
when I create my own family, right? And so it
Yeah.
is a gift. It's a gift for
Yeah.
yourself, but it's also a gift for your children and your family as a whole.
Yes. I love that. And I think it's important for every child to see that
Yes.
mommy, my parent, prioritizes their care, their rest,
Mhm.
and it sets up the stage for when they get in a relationship or
Yes.
become parents to not have these outdated, unhelpful ideas
Yes.
about how this time is supposed to go. Because
Right.
if my son sees that sometimes I go away and have a girls' weekend, or I go and get massages to take care of my body, he's going to
Right.
think that that's normal, right?
Yes.
Like his
Yep.
partner in the future is going, that's what they do, you
Right.
know?
Right. Yep.
And so, like you said, it affects not only out in your community, but for the future.
Right, right. It's breaking that generational trauma in ways
Mhm.
that we don't normally think of it does, but it really
Yeah,
does. It's showing that there is a better way to
yeah,
enter into our parenthood and to create these families of support and
yeah,
understanding and care and nourishment, and it's not reserved just for a baby or,
right,
the little ones in the family. It's truly a fully healthy functioning family unit when we are all
yeah,
caring for ourselves and each other. So it's powerful. It really is.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, I've been loving this conversation so much. I just feel like we are like on the same wavelength with
yes.
everything. Oh, it's awesome. But I would love to see if you have like one last piece of advice,
Mhm.
or I know you shared your, should is the most dangerous word you can have, which I
It
love
is.
that so much. But I don't know
Mhm.
if you have any other little tidbits of, inspiration that you'd love to share. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I want to reiterate something that you said actually. You are worthy,
Yes.
right? You are worthy of all of the care and the love and the rest that we are talking about. This is
Yes.
not for, like, it's easy to see me talking and knowing that I serve professional women and physician
Right.
moms and say, oh, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
But if you have had a baby, you deserve all of these things. You are
Yeah.
worthy of all of these things. And it is not selfish. You are not a bad person if you pursue these things
Mhm.
over your children. Because I think we need to reframe that
Yes.
prioritizing ourselves is a selfish thing,
Right.
right? I use my cliche all the time. On an airplane, they tell you, put on
Mhm.
your oxygen mask first before you help anyone else. There's a reason they tell you that. You
Right.
have to be alive. You have to be
Right.
okay to then care for this baby that
Mhm.
is here with you, right?
Yeah.
So it is not a luxury. These are not two people that you can't relate to talking about things that you don't know about. This is for you,
Right.
whoever you are, right?
Yes.
So I think
Mhm.
that's like the most important thing that I want to leave people with. And
Yes.
just going back to be persistent about talking about how you feel.
Yes.
S- I know it takes courage, but you are too important. Again, you you deserve to be well,
Right.
and that includes mentally.
Yes. 100%. Well, how can people
Mm.
get in touch with you, Dr. Latoya, if you don't mind just
Yeah,
sharing like where they can reach
of
you?
course. Yeah, so I'm on social media on every platform at Dr. Toya Coaching. So that's DRTOYA Coaching. And that's Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And on Facebook, it's my name, Latoya Luces-Sampson.
Perfect.
And my website is drtoyacoaching.com. And since we've been talking about mental health, I actually have a mental health resource list
Oh,
that
great.
goes through like resources and not just for the person that just gave birth, but for family as well. Right. So it's
Perfect.
a lovely resources on there that can be found on my website to help
That's
everyone just be well.
awesome. That's great. Well, thank you so much. Remember, the show can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, Hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you so much, Dr. Toya.
Thank you. This was a pleasure. Thank you.